Hi, girls. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, there's Gabrielle. Hi, Gabrielle.
How are you?
I am well. You have 34 girls on.
So I see.
We have a crowd tonight, Bridget.
Hey, Kevin, what's up?
Good. Managing I know the girls see my little technical challenges, but we managing.
Oh, the girls having some technical challenges?
No, Kevin having some technical challenges. I think the video was sticking a little bit, but that's okay. It's all good. They should do the song by now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Gabrielle Blackwood. The other Gabrielle, you know what?
Wondering.
We have a girl on who is Gabrielle Blackwood as well. So she's not even doing film. And she's like, I have to come on to meet her.
A while ago, I was literally just like, did I
go in twice?
Nice to meet you, Gabrielle.
Good night.
Oh, there she goes. Gabrielle, meet Gabrielle. Gabrielle Blackwood, meet Gabrielle Blackwood. It's so uncanny. Hi, girls. Hi, Sanea. Hi, Bernadine, Antonio, Anthea. Hi, girls. All right. Well, we're not going to spend a lot of time because we're already 20 minutes in, and we're going to move right into our 2 polls. Kev, you're going to run those 2 polls.
Yeah, we just quickly have 2 really important polls we want to get past with you, ladies. So I'm going to put it in the chat now. You all know the drill while I do my share screen.
Do the mentimeter.com in the chat.
All right, so let us know, have you ever made a short film or video? Right, so we're getting responses coming in so far. And I'm sure Gabrielle will be appreciative of this kind of information.
Yes, definitely.
Right, so we have, we're getting on there. Come on, so you all know the drill by now. Click the Mentimeter and just vote
on the
and let us know.
in the chat and just respond, please, guys. It will help us to determine how to provide for your needs so that everybody can have a fair shot at winning this thing come the 24th.
Nice. We have 24 responses so far. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, we're waiting on 10 more girls to weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the chat and click on the Mentimeter.
Yeah, it's coming in all the boosts.
Fund.
Don't be ashamed. We don't know, all this is anonymous, so we don't know who's saying.
We don't know who is saying what. We just need to know what you're saying so we can make sure that we provide you guys with great workshops and sessions to prepare you to
help us.
The 24th.
Will help us to give you like additional resources, stuff like that, on the notice board.
But based on these stats, you guys don't need me at all.
Oh, yes, we do. Okay, that's great. Okay, so we are at
about 50-50,
Yeah,
50-50. 12 to 15.
We just give who just entered a short time. Click on the link in the chat and tell us, have you ever made a short film or video or docudrama?
I'll need to put it back. So who missed the link before? There it is again. Just click on the Mentimeter link.
Again.
So have you ever made a short film or short video? And it doesn't have to be anything professional. I mean like on your phone, if you record your friends, if you record, if you record a birthday greeting or happy birthday greeting to your mom or anything like that.
Not really. Not a happy birthday.
Hey, that takes work.
Yeah, that takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of skill. It's true.
Yeah. and you have to be good. You have to be good looking on camera too.
Exactly. You have to know how to position the camera to get the right angle.
Yeah.
All right. So we're at 28. That's great. I think we're good, Kev. We can probably move on to the next.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So give me a second.
Thank you, girls.
Right. So the next one is it's along the same lines. So we want to know, have you ever used film or any time of tools to create or software to create a video?
A film.
Yeah. Have you ever used film creation tools or software?
Yeah.
I'll butcher that.
Have you ever used film creation tools or software? That's great. Oh, wow. Yes, 10. We got there fast. Oh, amazing.
So Ollie make no videos, but Ollie use the tools. So these are the background people, Bridget. This is the behind the scenes animators and the coders and those who
Apparently.
yeah, these are not the stars. These are the ones who these are not sorry, are not stars, but you know the ones who not in front of the camera. These are the behind the scenes kind of ladies we have here tonight.
Yeah, the production team.
I like it. I like it. I love it.
Anybody else?
Oh, 18.
Yes.
18 yeses so far.
18 people have. Okay, that's amazing. Anybody else? Don't be afraid. Tell us what you give us your answers. All right.
Nice. I think
Okay.
that's a good response so far.
Representation, yeah.
A good indication, really good indication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bridget, if you will allow me 2 minutes, you know the poll I want to run, right?
Yes, I want you to
expectations.
run it too.
Right?
Yeah, what are your expectations from tonight's session?
Right. So I'm just gonna stop this one. Right. So ladies, you all know this one really well. It gives us great insight into
How you feel about this competition and being a part of Caribbean Girls Hack. Woohoo! This is our favorite time of the night.
right. So there's the link. It's the last link.
Last link. Click on the link.
Right. And we'll get
Tell us.
we'll get right into it.
Yes, what are your expectations from this session? To learn. Oh, determined, nervous, happy. Woo! You're coming in fast and furious.
Food.
Oh, more food. Oh. Did somebody promise somebody snacks on this session?
That had to be a Trini. I feel that's a Trini, you know. That had to be one of the Trini girls.
Man. Have to be a Trini.
Yeah, Trini only think about the belly. Sleep, exhilarated, to have fun, encouraged, nervous, gain a new skill, keen. I like these responses.
I like the
Love those responses.
Ready to rumble.
All right.
I love this one. Step out of my comfort zone.
Ooh, I love that.
Nice. I love these empowering words that these young ladies have started using with us. Remember when they now start, the words weren't so powerful, Bridget? I don't know if you recall. Yep. We should do that, huh? Check and see how they progressed and their how they
zone. Okay.
I love these responses.
Knowledge, exhilarated, new learnings. Ooh, experience, buzzy.
Say hello to my name.
To help myself grow. I love it. I love it.
Oh, you know who that is, Gabrielle, right? To say hello to my name. Oh, wonderful.
Nice. So we have 22 responses so far. So let's wait for a couple more. Let's see if we can get 25.
Just one word, guys. What is it that you expect?
And again, all these, everything here is anonymous. We want to help. We want to improve our delivery. We want to help you all get to the point where you all have this thing down, man.
Down pat, as we say.
Yeah. What the star mean? Ladies, let me know in the chat what the star is, what that star emoji. I don't know I hold and I don't know these things. But I try to get up, pick up a kite.
Chicken curry Food seems to be a big theme here.
No. Oh my God.
But I'm right there with you with
Vibes.
the
We hit 25, man. Chicken curry,
Yeah.
come now. Chicken curry. It's a sparkle. Oh, thanks, Gabriel. Nice. So we have 25 responses. Thank you so much, ladies. I will stop it there and I will be quiet for the rest of the evening. Thank you so much again for giving us that information. All right. So, Bridge, over to you.
All right. Well, oh my gosh, 36 girls. Wow. That's fantastic because I think when we did the count, we had about 12 teams, Kev. 12 teams said that they were going to do film and short docudrama.
Think about that. Yeah, it's a proper topic.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we have about 3 representatives per team, which is fantastic because we know some people have classes, so they're not able to come on, but there's a representative of every team here, and that's amazing because Gabriel is going to be able to give you a lot of information. So we are very, very pleased to have with us this evening Gabrielle Blackwood. She is a young filmmaker, Jamaican filmmaker, making waves in the filmmaking industry. She is a lover of historicals and westerns. Yes, believe it or not, grew up in Jamaica, but loves a western movie. And she is the biggest foodie, which is why she was so thrilled by your comments that were food oriented. She's a retired bookworm, which is always good for a filmmaker. And she's an obsessive writer. She loves music. She composes music and in imaginative life and compassionate human interactor. And she loves directing, coloring, and shooting films. So we have one of the stars with us this evening, and we are so thrilled to be able to allow you girls to interact with Gabrielle as your deep dive presenter for short film and short docudrama. Thanks, Gabrielle, and over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love this initiative. I know sometime last year, Bridget, there was a talk that you had, there's a whole session.
Yes.
Right. And I'm happy to see that it has been continuing. And I mean, this is just even more expansive, I feel, than what was happening the year before. But I'm really
there are certain positives that have come with COVID, and the ability to bring all of the girls together on one platform has been amazing. Yeah.
And that's a good point, because now is actually the time to exercise, you know, your creativity, and just to learn any sort of new skill. I mean, even I find now, I mean, I'm very, very busy throughout the year, extremely busy, but with COVID and the lock-ins that we've had here in Jamaica, I've been able to just use a little bit of my free time to just learn something new each day. And I think, and I know I saw some of the words there, and that's super important to me in terms of learning something new and, you know, stepping out of your comfort zone, because it's actually when you step out of your comfort zone that you actually break a barrier and you reach somewhere that you probably wouldn't have normally. And one of the reasons why I'm saying that, and I'll get to it a little bit later as well, is just to give you a little bit about my background. I studied here in Jamaica and then overseas in New Zealand in films. I did media in Jamaica, and then in New Zealand I did film, and I studied directing drama. So I studied to become a director, which I became. But when I came back home in Jamaica, we didn't value directors so much as we did DPs, or directors of photography. And I don't know if many of you know who a DP is and what they do, but a DP is, it's really a male intense professional. When I say intense, meaning it's here, we had no female DP. So I'm actually the first female DP here in Jamaica. And now over the last 10 years, we've seen quite a few female DPs around the world. Some of you may even know Rachel Morrison. She was the one that shot Black Panther. But if you don't know what a DP is really somebody who paints with light. And when I say paints with light, they're in charge of the lighting of a set. They're in charge of most DPs shoot, meaning we don't necessarily have a camera operator, but we operate the cameras ourselves. We're the ones that directs. We are the HODs of the crew in terms of the camera and the lighting crew. So I would have my camassists who would help me in terms of changing lenses, slating, prepping or rigging the camera. And then also on the other side, I have my gaffer and my grip, and then I would instruct them how to light a scene. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. But that's just to say, in terms of breaking barriers, we don't have a lot of female DPs, especially in the Caribbean. And that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing more of. So yes, if you have the time to just learn something new each day, it doesn't have to be in that particular area, but you just never know what you'll come across. So I'm just going to share my screen. Let me just make sure that I have this pulled up.
Gabrielle, can I just ask one question before?
Sure.
Do we have any girls who are in the music video doing music video on? Any girls doing music video? Can you just raise your hands, please?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, ladies and Gabrielle, just let you know, I know British told you, so the girls can open their mics at any time if you want them to. We have no restrictions on that.
By all means.
Yeah, okay, we have 2 girls doing music video. Anybody else?
I do music videos as well.
Oh, okay, is that, who is that? Can't see her name.
Yael?
Jael.
Oh, hi, Yael. Okay, so great, because a lot of what, and you can correct me, Gabrielle, but a lot of what you're going to be teaching the girls tonight would also be applicable in the music video creation space, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
So just to give you an overview of, yes, what I'll be speaking about, it's a lot. I'm going to try and see if I can condense it in the 2 hours or however much time we have left. But I want to just do an overview from start to finish of what the process is like, just in the working world, not just in theory, but in terms of creating a film, a short film in particular, or a documentary, or a docudrama, or a music video, or a commercial, and how things work. And if you guys have any questions, just, speak out and I'll try and answer as best as possible. So starting off with production management, does anybody know who a producer is and what they do? So so I'm assuming nobody knows what a producer is, or if you do, I don't know if anybody wants to, Rebecca, okay, so Rebecca, can you tell me a little bit of what you know? I think that was Rebecca. I'm not hearing, okay. So I'll just move on just a little bit. So essentially, the producer is in charge, and if you guys can see, you can see my whole screen or just a part of it. Can you see that? Yes, I can't hear anybody.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so basically a producer is somebody who's in charge of, I would say, almost everything. It's almost a case of what does a producer not do? And you tend to have 2 types of producers. And when I say that, not necessarily in terms of 2 different roles, but there are producers who are more managerial in their approach. And then there are producers who are more creative in their approach. Or you have producers, and a very good producer would be one that has a mix of both. And I say that to say a lot of projects start with a producer, or it starts with the director having an idea and them hiring a producer. But a lot of the time, when a producer is managing a set or a production, they also have to tap into the creative side to make creative decisions. When they're making decisions about money and financing, all of that affects the creative. And they have to understand creatively how that will affect the output of the project and the effect of the project. So yes, they do manage the budget. They hire the crew. they're in charge of pre-production, they're in charge of production, overseeing all of that. They're in charge of post, so from start to finish. If it's a commercial, you will have the producer and maybe a line producer. The line producer specifically deals with the dailies, so they will do up the budget. They're the ones who will hire the crew in terms of talking directly with the crew members, asking them if they're available. They're the base man on set. So sometimes you may not see the producer directly on set. When it's smaller productions, you will see the producer on set. If not, your touch man or your point man on set as a representative of the producer is the line producer. But we'll also touch on that a bit more as well. And then yes, the producer has a final say in decision making. But like I said, they see the product, the project, the film from start to finish. So from prep to post, they're the ones at the end with the editor, not specifically in the edit room, but they have to ensure that the editor and the colorist do what they need to do, and anybody else that's involved in the post-production of the film or the project. So moving on from the producer, just to get you familiarized with some industry terms, for those of you who don't know, some of you may know, some of you may be familiar with these. But the first is a treatment, and the treatment is one of the first things that you work with in terms of an idea. So let's say you have an idea for a project. It can be a documentary, it can be a film, it can be a commercial, it can be a music video. And I don't know if you guys realize now, but lots of music videos are in essence nowadays short films based on how they're written. It's like a short form of storytelling. It's not necessarily just, oh yes, a performance shot and that's it, and just people dancing, or just, you know, scenes of landscapes or whatever else. It's literally a story being told. So I actually consider music videos now short forms or short stories, which require a treatment. And basically this is a prose document. So it's literally like you're reading, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Enid Blyton. I mean, that was way back in the day, but literally it's like a story, but it's written in the present tense. And it is extremely descriptive in the sense that you should get a sense of the tone and the mood and the feel of whatever the project is or whatever the film is. But specifically, you try not to use dialogue. So it's not a script, it's not a screenplay. And also you don't include camera action or camera movement. So, you know, when people say, we see so-and-so happening, or we move into this character, etc., you would not write a treatment in that way. You would leave that out. Also, a recce. So a recce is also termed as a scout. I don't know if some of you know what that is, but basically this is pre-production for the project. So let's say you're doing a short film and you already have the treatment and you already have the screenplay in place. Now that you've hired the crew, and specifically the technical crew, you need to be able to look at the location. So there are two types of recce's that happen. There's the general location scout or the location recce, and that would involve the producer, the director, the assistant director, the DP, and the location manager, because the location manager, generally speaking, on a big production would be the person that selects the location, or they give you, let's say, 5 options. And then on the scout or the recce day, you go to those 5 options and you look at it. Now, why do you need a recce? For logistics purposes, as a DP, I need to see, one, what space we're working in, how I'm going to light that space. When I go on a tech recce, which is the other recce, I would go with my gaffer. So anything electrical wise, if I need to look at outlets to check to see if they have power, my gaffer will be there with his equipment, checking it. In terms of logistics, the producer also needs to know where they're going to house crew or equipment while we're shooting. So if a scene needs to happen in a dining room, clearly we can't put production, we can't put the makeup artist, we can't put talent, we can't put equipment in the dining room. So there's that. Also, where will equipment offload and reload? And it has to be easy access points. So you don't want to be shooting on the 8th floor of a building, but you have a massive truckload of equipment to carry up. You also have to work out how you're going to get that equipment in. You're also looking at simple things like, where is, the nearest bathroom? You also have to look at, sanitary facilities for crew, because I mean, and this happens all the time. When you're on set, you either need to go to the bathroom or wash your hands, whatever it is. So you need to have, simple things like toilet tissue, soap, hand towel. All of those things are exceptionally necessary. And this doesn't have to do with a recce, but also having a medical kit on board, on site can be a little first aid kit, but you never know what can happen. So yes, prep or pre-production is just any day before the shoot that's used in terms for meetings, for scouts, for budgeting, for shortlisting, for storyboarding, for scheduling, etc. All of that happens in prep. The call sheet. So this is literally the schedule that's given out to cast and crew. And on the call sheet, and I'll show you just all of these items as I go through them. The call sheet literally shows who the crew are. It may give you details in terms of phone numbers of the crew, but really it highlights each scene for that particular project. And each scene is generally timed out by the assistant director. People mix up assistant director to somebody who is assisting the director. That's not the case at all. Somebody who is like a production assistant to the director is called the assistant to the director, but an assistant director is literally the slave driver on set. They're the ones that keeps the set on time, on schedule, or at least they try to ensure that. If the director or the production in general needs this particular character on set or in makeup or in wardrobe at this particular time, the AD ensures, you literally hear the AD's mouth right throughout the shoot. They ensure that that person is where they need to be. And if they need to be on set at this time, they're there. If the director is running over time, then the AD is going to be like, listen, we only have 5 minutes for this shot. So either make it work or let's see what's, let's try and figure out another way of going about it. Likewise, the AD may come to the DP and they'll be like, okay, tell me how much time it's going to take to light this. Generally speaking, most ADs would have done all of that timing before the shoot. So for example, when I'm on a recce with an AD for a commercial job, they will say to me, they will ask me, okay, they need to schedule the shoot. So how much time do I need to set up lights? Or how much time do I think I will need to set up lights? Or how long will this particular scene take in terms of setting up lights and prepping for it? And that all leads us to how they break down the schedule. So I'm just going to come out of this a bit because you've heard me talking for a while. So these are actual call sheets. So for example, this is a digital commercial that we did. And as you can see here, you have on this side, you have a list of everybody in terms of the crew. You have the call time and you have different call times. Everybody's at a different call time. Also, if you have talent, each talent is given a number. And when I say that, especially for films or short films, you have, let's say you have three different characters. They're named number one, number two, number three. So what you will see in a scene breakdown, and this is not in this type of call sheet, but I'll show you another one. You will literally see that, let's say Diana is the name of the lead character. You will see number one, you'll see the scene name, you'll see the scene description, maybe a very short one-liner blurb, and then you'll have the number beside it, who that talent is. And that literally is just, okay, I look on the call sheets and I can tell I need Diana in scene 2A at this point in time, and this is going to take me 20 or should take me 20 minutes to shoot. But something else to note is that you have sunrise and sunset in terms of, what time sunrise and sunset is. And it gives you emergency details and contact details. The sunrise and sunset detail is important, especially if you're shooting something either outdoors or something that's, or a scene or a film or a project that's very specific with weather. Because also you have to look at, let's say you're shooting a short film over 3 days. It's best you always have to look at the weather beforehand, especially the director of photography. Look, and the assistant director, look at the weather beforehand, because if you have any exteriors or outdoor shots, then you need to schedule them on the days that are best. So if you know it's going to rain on Wednesday, you make sure that you schedule that particular outdoor shot for Tuesday or for Monday. And then also in terms of just the time of day and the light, etc., that's very important. So yes, you have, so as you can see here, this detail, it says production call, hair and makeup, everybody has a different call time. So if I'm looking at my call time, camera pre-call, my call time is 5:30 in the morning. So generally speaking, on a commercial project or any project that we have here, the call times range between 5 and 6:30 if it is an all-day shoot. And when I say if it is an all-day shoot, most jobs are all-day shoots, but meaning during the day, because sometimes if it's a night shoot, we would start at maybe 2 in the afternoon and then wrap at 5 or whatever else in the morning, if it's an overnight shoot. But it's literally normally a 12 to 14-hour day that we work. So the reason why I have to get there early is the director doesn't have to get there that early. As a director of photography and the camera crew that's below you, generally speaking, you have to get there early. One, to rig the camera. And then rigging the camera takes about, depending on how much you have to rig, and if you're using multiple cameras, then you have 2 or 3 cameras to rig. And just depending on the camera setup and if you're using gimbals, etc. So for example, if we're using a Ronin, everybody knows a Ronin takes a very long time to balance. Outside of just rigging the camera with camera parts, a Ronin takes exceptionally long to balance. And so you set a time for that. After that, you have to have breakfast. And then after breakfast, then you move to set. Moving to set is where we, what we call the company move, which I'll get to. Let me just see if I can pull up some other call sheets. This is another commercial job. No, this is pretty much the same. I'm just trying to find one that you, okay. So this was actually, what was this? Oh, right. So this is a music video that I directed and DP'd. And so this is an example. So these are the scene numbers, and this is in shooting order. So as you'll see, the numbers aren't in any chronological order at all. But literally you have the scene description, you have the number of the cast. So I can just look at this number and I can know that this was Marsha because I know who it was. So Marsha is the love interest in this music video. So I know that number 2 is Marsha, and I know she needs to be at this particular location, and this is what we're actually going to be shooting. Now where it says 1/8 of a page, and I should have had a script on hand, but just to give you an idea, one sec, see if I can find a blank sheet of paper. All right, so if you see, I don't know if you guys can see me on my screen, but if you see this blank sheet of paper, every script is broken down into 8ths. And so what that figure is saying is that this is the amount of what the scene looks like on a page. So it's broken down into 8ths. So the page is divided into 8ths. And obviously a half would be, or 4/8 would be a half of the page. So you know exactly how long that scene is. And then so on and so forth. So 2/8 would be a little bit more than 1/8, etc. But it gives you an idea, and it gives the AD and it gives anybody who has this schedule an idea of how much of a page they're accomplishing for this particular scene. So you have the character numbers here, and scrolling down here is where you have the breakdown of who the characters are. So right now, so the lead was O'Shea, he was number 1, number 2, etc. And obviously, and then you also have, so this was pickup information. We had to pick them up from this place for them to arrive on set. And then you also have special things. So you also have what special props you'll need for that shoot. What camera is being used, wardrobe. If you need to have like an animal wrangler, a dog wrangler, is there some kind of special effects that you're doing for a particular scene? Then all of that would be listed right here on the special requirements and department notes. And then you have the information of the crew. Something that's missing here, which normally is included, because it's the AD who should really be doing this, is they will literally say, at the bottom of the page, for example, down here, they would say, no smoking at XYZ location, or please keep the noise down, etc. They will give you the do's and don'ts of what to do on set or what not to do on set while you're there. Any specific rules that the homeowner may have or the location owner may have, they will list that below at the bottom of the call sheet. And here's an example of, so here's another example. This is more of so it's a call sheet, but it's really more of a schedule line item breakdown. It's an easier way of reading the call sheet for some people. I prefer the other way, but some people like this way. So this is a breakdown of the scenes, and you literally see timed out here of what will happen. So you have call time for camera and makeup and wardrobe, company move, lunch, etc. So we obviously, this is one of the examples of us starting the shoot day in the middle of the day, but then continuing on. And then, so that same digital, that same Digicel commercial, this is not the call sheet, but this is a shooting schedule, which is different from a call sheet. So the shooting schedule is kind of similar to the document you just saw before, where it is more of a line item and it's not the boxes with the listings, etc., etc. So this is a so this is a digital commercial, and literally it just tells you what their call time is, where they're supposed to be, what their cast number is. You also have the sunrise here. So as you can see, there are different variations of a call sheet, and maybe you can combine that with the shoot schedule. And then also, so I was just DPing the shoot. So the director on the recce, on the location scout, these were some of the photos that we took. So this is actually the director here. And she literally included her shot list in the schedule, which doesn't normally happen. Normally it's a separate document, but for her, this is what worked. So this is what is here. This is just an example. And if you look at this in terms of just having the image there, it's just very easy for, if you pick up this piece of paper, you literally know what the shot is supposed to look like, or the angle of the shot is supposed to be, if you do it this way. So like I said, they're just different variations. The main thing is that you have the details of what the scene is, you have the timing of the scene, you have who the characters are and their numbers, you have a description of the scene, you have who the crew is, what their call times are, you have the emergency information, and emergency information would be the nearest hospital to the location that you are. So if you are going to be moving locations, or if let's say you're shooting today and I'm just going to give a Jamaican example because I'm familiar with Jamaica. But let's say I'm shooting in Kingston on Monday and I'm shooting in Mona. Then I'm going to use the university hospital as that emergency contact. And you can use an emergency contact of the hospital and probably the nearest police station or the nearest fire station, whatever it is. But most times it's the hospital. And then let's say on Tuesday, I'm shooting in, I don't know, Portland. And so therefore I'm going to have another call sheet for that second day, which is different, which outlines the Port Antonio Hospital. So each shoot day has a different call sheet, and that's very important to note. All right, moving on. So shot list, hugely important. A lot of people who are just starting out assume that the DP does the shot list. That is not completely correct or correct. The shot list should really come from the director because they have a vision for the project. And so they ideally know what they want and how they want it shot, or they should. If they don't, and it's their first time, that's fine. A lot of the time when I'm not directing and I'm DPing for somebody, and let's say it's their first time, or maybe, first or second time, I will literally work with them on the first draft of the shot list. If I'm not doing that, generally speaking, what I do is I ask the director and I'm like, okay, well, provide me with a shot list, whether it's a basic thing and it can be, medium shot of this, close up of this for this particular scene. I just want to see that you have an idea as a director of what you want, so I can get an idea of how I need to deliver and serve your purpose in terms of the shots. And then I go through it as well and type in my own. So I'll show you an example or a couple of examples of that. So, and these are, I tried to do different examples, meaning short film, documentary, etc. So, and this is not public knowledge, so maybe I shouldn't go into this, but this is coming out soon, but you can keep it amongst yourselves. So this is actually a documentary that I was directing and DPing for Clark's. And this is just an example of what it is that I include in my shot list. And as a DP, I also include what lens I'll be using, the frame rate I'll be shooting at, and also the grip and light setup. Not specifically the light setup, but if, let's say, I'm shooting on sticks or a Dana dolly, and you guys can become familiar with what those are, but basically it's different types of rigging for the camera, which influences the type of movement of the camera. So if I'm keeping it static, normally I'm on sticks. If I'm moving, depending on how I'm moving in the scene, however the scene is blocked, then I'd be on a Dana dolly, or I would be on a Ronin, or I'll be moving handheld on a rig. And I'll show you some BTS of that so you can see what that is. But as you can see, for me specifically, I like to put a description of what it is that I'll be shooting. I also like to, and this is just me, this is nobody else, just my personal thing. And that's another thing. Design your shot list the way that it is specific to you, or how it makes you understand it easier. Because at a glance, when you're on set and time is upon you, you just want to be able to get things done as soon as possible and remember things as quickly as possible. So generally speaking, for the character, what I tend to do is whomever I'm shooting, I put that in bold. So I may have just a general description, but that I know. So I need to know, okay, I'm looking at a student here, I'm looking at a teacher. And then you have the type of shot. So whether it's a master shot, a wide shot, a medium close-up, which is what MCU stands for. It can be a medium shot, or it can be a close-up, which is a CU, or it can be a bird's eye, whatever it is. You include that. And then what I also like to do personally is, as you can see here, I have a key. And for me, it's the easiest thing to look at when I'm picking up my shot list. I know, okay, purple represents the school that we're shooting at. It's not a particular artist, but that's what we're going to be doing. So I don't have to, I know exactly location-wise, DP-wise, what I'm lighting, where I'm shooting. And then so on and so forth. So I'll just scroll down a bit. And this was the blue. I knew that we were shooting in Portland. So you can see some of the shots there. And if there is, and by the way, this is a documentary. So a lot of people think that for documentaries, you wing it. And that is true to an extent, but I'll give you a little background more about this particular project. I could write specific details of the B-roll that I wanted for a particular reason. And that's because I did pre-interviews before the actual interviews that I was shooting on the day. But I'll talk a bit more about that as well. And that has to do with prep and pre-production. So this is basically a shot list. But as you can see over here, this is a shot list in sequence order. Now, when the AD, as a DP, so I'll just tell you, so the director comes up with a storyboard or a shot list, or let's say a basic one. Then the director and the DP work on the shot list together, meaning after we get the skeleton of the shot list, or maybe the director is extremely detailed like this already and doesn't need any of this, but then the director and the DP speak, they come up with, it can be this particular shot list, it may not have all of these details, whatever it is. And then this is handed off to the assistant director. And the assistant director takes this document and then schedules the shoot, which then leads us to the call sheets and everything else that you're introduced to before. But like I was saying, this is not in shoot order, because as you can see here, the numbers are chronological. Now, what the assistant director will do is sometimes they will liaise with the DP, because sometimes there is a particular lighting setup that may take longer than other lighting setups, and maybe you want to get that out of the way first, or maybe you're using a particular lens. So as you can see here, if I'm on the 50mm lens and then I have to change to the 25mm lens, but then I have a 25mm shot here as well, the AD may be like, okay, well, it takes time to switch the lens, so let's try and keep it on this lens. I will schedule all the shots that are here together because you're on the same lens. But then there's something else to consider at the same time. What is happening in the story? So if this were a short film, the AD would be like, okay, but in terms of continuity or the storyline of the film, or which character is in this particular scene, should I schedule these two together, or does something happen in the scene? Is it a case that ice cream spills on their clothing? And if that's the case, or do they have to jump in the water? And if that's the case, then we're going to schedule the last shot of the jumping in the water because we can't get their clothes wet 5, 6, or 7 times. We literally have 2 outfits and this is like a 1-2 take wonder. So you would schedule that shot last. So all of those things the AD has to consider, but this goes to the AD. All right, so coming out of this a bit, just trying to see if there's something else. So there's a short film. This is another example. So that was documentary. That was a documentary shot list. It's all the same in terms of the shot list, but just to show you that a lot of people think that because you're shooting a documentary and not a narrative or a short film, whatever it is, something that's fictional, you don't have to have a shot list for a documentary. And that's not true, because guess what? You need to know what people that you're interviewing, people that you're working with in the documentary, as run and gun as it is, and run and gun meaning on the fly as it is, unplanned as it is, there is some amount of planning with it. You have to schedule those interviews. You're working with other people's time. You need to know exactly what you're capturing. So you would obviously also do a recce of the environment because you know the story that you're trying to tell. And you may not get all the answers in documentary filmmaking of the story that you want to tell immediately. Maybe that's the point of the documentary, for you to find that particular answer. And a lot of what you make in the documentary and the result of the documentary actually happens in the edit, because sometimes you'll have a list of questions, but based on the response that you get from the person, it changes the trajectory or the storyline that you originally had in mind in terms of how you were going to edit the documentary. And as people like to call documentary filmmakers documentarians, but as a filmmaker or a documentary filmmaker, it is extremely important because you are searching for the truth in essence, or that's how it should be. Well, that's how I feel it should be. That's just my personal opinion. And you're trying to represent the truth as best as possible, because everything is subjective, but you are just trying to represent it as best as possible. Then yes, you need to be able to receive the information, even if it doesn't go the way that you originally planned it to be, and just see where it takes you. You just never know. So a lot of the documentary happens in the edit, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a shot list. All right, so this is for narrative, and this is the same thing in that sense where you have all of this detail here. But because it's more fictional, as you can see in my description column, it's more detailed. So I know there's this other short film I was working on, and it was a case where characters had to be disappearing and reappearing and disappearing. And I literally had to make a note for every shot of which character was disappearing, which one was reappearing. And it helped because even on the day, the director was at a loss. Like, it was almost as if, you can't remember, because the director is focused more on the acting and not the logistics of, okay, so who needs to be in this shot at what point in time, so that in the edit it works, that they disappear and they reappear. So notes are extremely important. And for me, the detail is important. Also, for example, you'll see here, run entire scene, follow action to 2 shot of father and son near the end. So I put those notes there. I know the director is not thinking about this, but I have to put these notes there because a lot of the time you will take the time to light a scene. You'll have the characters in that scene. And let's say you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 shots, more than that normally, to cover that particular scene. But something happens and you move on to another shot, which should have followed behind shot 1. So let's say you move on to shot 4, which really should have followed behind shot 1, because guess what? It means you're going to have to pull down the lights and reset for this other shot, even though it is within the same scene. So normally, if that is the case, I would say run the entire sequence of the scene so we get all of this angle here, so we don't have to go back to it. We don't have to relight, we don't have to reset. So that's just an example of notes. All right, so let me just come out of this. I'm just trying to move through as quickly as possible. All right, so craft. Let me just make sure I've covered, right. Another thing in terms of directing specifically for me. So for example, there was a proof of concept that I needed to shoot for a feature film that I'm in prep for right now. And the proof of concept was essentially a short film of sorts, more of like a trailer, but it's a period piece. And so one of the things as a director that I like to do, and which every director should do, and most directors do it, is you're thinking of not just the actors, the characters, and the story, but you're thinking of the time period, you're thinking of the production design, you're thinking of the wardrobe elements. And so for me, when it's very specific, I will literally just, whether it's just put together a couple of photos and just reference it for the wardrobe or stylist, give it to them so they have something to work from, instead of just talking with them, because I think people, especially people who work visually, get it better visually, or they have something to work from. So for example, this is a very simple version of that. So it's a period piece, and I literally just grabbed some photos, and these were the references that I gave to the stylist for it, so she could have an idea of what I was looking for. And obviously, if you look up here, I will title it. So the Aria pilot, he needed to have elements of what these guys have in these photos, or some of those elements at least. And so on and so forth. For the train scenes, you know, simple things like what type of hat they may wear back in that day. Because for this particular trailer or proof of concept, the stylist had to be dressing about, I would say, about 15 to 20 people. Okay, so coming out of this, another example, there's this music video. So this hasn't come out yet. We haven't even shot this music video. But this is an example. So this is one I'm co-directing and DPing as well. But this is more detailed because we're kind of shooting it almost like a Western. And, you know, there's specific elements that I would like to see. So for the stylist, I will even, you know, outside of just a wardrobe, it could be the adornments, it could be the hairpiece, it could be, you know, the shoes, it could be the earrings. And I'll, you know, put little notes. And then for the other characters in the film, I'll do that as well. But the important thing is just to show and be very specific, especially if it is a specific production. Be extremely specific, because what you don't want is at the end of the day for the wardrobe or the stylist to come with something and spend money on something that you do not like. So all of this is super important. And as a director, not as a DP, no, but as a director, these visuals are extremely important. Some people may have what you call a lookbook or a look or a deck. And they may include all of this in that deck, meaning they may include how they imagine the lighting to look, or they may include the mood and the tone and the feel in terms of visuals, or they will include the wardrobe, and they will include maybe even makeup if it's specialized makeup, and they'll include production design. And an example of that is this same one where I think this is right. So in that recce, what's important in the recce is that you take photos of the actual location. The DP would normally do this, but also the location manager takes photos. Sometimes the AD does, but normally it's between the DP and the location manager. But you take photos, you take your tape measure, you make measurements because you don't know what you'll be covering. And then, so for this, I'm just giving references as to how I want that particular area to be dressed. I'm giving options in terms of props that will be used. I'm trying to be specific with the numbers. So I'll say 4 barrel chairs or 4 of this, 4 that. Specifics even include what's on the table. You know, what type of candle. I didn't know that this candle was named Adonia. I had to Google that, but I knew exactly the look of the candle that I wanted. So yes, all of this is important. And that's, so each person, the production designer will get their document, the stylist will get their document, etc. And that's mostly for fictional work. If you are doing docudramas, so docudramas would be the combination of documentary and I don't say fiction, but it's more reenactment. If you have to reenact something, then you have to think of wardrobe, you have to think of styling, you have to think of production design, anything that makes, that represents the time period, the moment that you are actually trying to reenact. That's super important. Okay, and craft is just catering and food for a shoot. Depending on where you are studying or where you are working, I should say, it changes. So I know in the US, they call it craft. Here we call it craft. But for example, in New Zealand, they call it the unit table. And unit table in the US means something completely different. Or you'll have the hospitality person here, or you'll have the caterer here who's in charge of it. Or you'll have a specific production assistant who's in charge of that. But in New Zealand, they will call that person a unit manager. No, a unit manager is literally, in the US, is somebody who equates to the line producer, who is only second to the producer. That's 2 different ballparks, ball games, terminologies. So it's important to know the different terms in the different industries in the different countries, because people can get mixed up. All right, so just moving on from that, the workflow. So being specific with what you guys are doing, I think, and feel free to stop me wherever in terms, if it's not encompassing what you're doing, or if you have a question for what it is that you are doing. So for documentaries, and this is what I was referencing before for that Clark's documentary, if it is a social outreach documentary, generally speaking, it's a director that has an idea, has an interest in a particular area. Maybe they've already done research on it, or they have been doing research on it. But a certain amount of research has to be done. That's the first thing. Another thing is, if you are, once you're doing a documentary and it involves interviews, there are 2 trains of thought. Do pre-interviews before, so that you can not only, you can find out more about what you are doing in terms of the documentary, or find out more answers, or perhaps, you know, what you want to cover in terms of the visuals or the B-rolls. So if you know that this farmer grew up in this particular district and they farmed this particular crop, and I don't know, for example, let's just say it's sorrel or something. You want to know that you're going on your shot list, you're going to put, okay, we need to get a close-up of the sorrel, or, you know, a close-up of the bud hair, or maybe if you're doing a docudrama, maybe you want to reenact the farmer digging up the soil for sorrel, but that's going to be on your shot list. But not only that, if you didn't do a pre-interview, then you would not have perhaps gotten those details. That's one train of thought. The other train of thought is, you don't want to prep the interviewee too much, because you want to get their authentic, I don't say performance, but their authentic answers on screen. And I completely 100% agree with that train of thought. The downside to that is, somebody talking to you face to face is different from somebody talking to camera. When people see a camera and it comes in front of them, it's a whole other ball game. And a lot of the time, you may get stilted answers if they're not somebody that's used to a camera in front of them, or if they're not genuinely comfortable in front of a camera. So some of these things, your approach is very important. And also, you as the director or the producer or the creator of the project, you will kind of have an idea once you've met with these people. You will kind of have an idea as to who you think may be camera shy, who may not be. But I think a good talk, even if it's not a pre-interview, just having a good sit down, it can be, I genuinely like just sitting down and having, you know, a casual lunch with whomever I'm doing a documentary on, or just talking with them casually, because you need to also establish that rapport, especially if you're the director, you need to establish that rapport with them. As it relates to fictional work and narrative work, we're talking, that's where the treatment and the screenplay comes in. So generally speaking, as it relates to films, it's normally the director or the writer that has the idea, or they've already, if they're the writer, they've already written the idea. If it's the director, they may have a treatment, or if they're a writer, director, or director-writer, they will have written out the screenplay for it. So all of that comes first. Then, in this particular scenario, most times it's the director who looks for a producer. So it's a bit weird. If you look on social media, when people tag people and they list the hierarchy of who the crew is, sometimes you'll see that they'll have the director's name first and then the producer and then everybody else. And then other times you'll see the producer at the top, then the director, and then everybody else. And that really just depends on how the project started or the working relationship. So sometimes it is that the director is the one that has the idea and speaks to the producer. And at the end of the day, the director is the one that has all the creative license, the final decision making, because they're the ones that brought the producer on the project. However, the producer is essentially still in charge of the entire production. Whether they're hired by the director, they are still in charge of it. Commercial wise, it works the other way around. So for commercials, it tends to be the agency who has a producer, or they have an in-house producer, and then they hire a director and the rest of the crew, et cetera, et cetera. So that delineation of the hierarchy of crew and how that works, it's literally just straight, normally top down. It's only when it gets into the narrative documentary world that it gets a little bit gray and confusing, but they have their specific roles to fulfill. So at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a problem. So yes, we have the screenplay. Now, in terms of, especially for feature length films, this is important to know. A lot of people forget this, but also it happens in short films as well. There's script development. We don't pay a lot of attention to that here in the Caribbean in terms of, okay, we have the screenplay and then yes, we're going to move straight into production. No, because you really should go through some amount of script development, which means having a script editor go through your script. And a script editor is not somebody who literally will take a document and put a full stop here, delete this there, yada, yada. No, they literally speak with you about how the story flows. Does the character achieve this in this scene? Does this scene move the story forward? Is it necessary, etc.? And the reason why it's very important to go through story development and script development in particular is so that you don't schedule a shoot and on the shoot day you shoot a scene that did not need to be shot, because you could have probably chopped off a whole day of shooting, which affects financing and budget. Or you realize that you didn't have the scene that you actually needed to achieve this emotional response in the audience. So all of those things are exceptionally necessary, which is why you should have a script editor in prep if you are doing any sort of fictional work. This is not for documentary filmmakers or anybody doing documentary, that's specifically for fictional work. And then you get into budgeting. And in terms of what you would budget for, it would be crew, talent, equipment, production design, props, location, security. Not many people think about that, but you do want to have someone. I don't know where you'll be shooting. That's another thing. So if you're shooting in a location that's perhaps a bit sketchy, you need to have security there. But regardless, even if it's not sketchy, once you have expensive equipment on set, you need to have security. If you are shooting with a high profile actor or talent, you need to have security. What else is there? And also budget for post-production. So you have to budget for editing and you have to budget for color grading. And I think we're becoming a little bit more familiar or using it or prizing it, I should say, valuing it a bit more here in the Caribbean, but color grading is a huge part of filmmaking. And I will show you some examples of that later as well. So just scrubbing through a bit, then you assemble the team. So the line producer will hire the team. And then you have the script breakdown and the scheduling. So you saw a little bit of the scheduling in terms of the call sheet and in terms of that production line item. And then you have the location recce, which I spoke about before. So this is the first location. This is the first location scout, which generally involves a producer, director, assistant director, DP, and location manager. Then after that, you have a technical recce. And you may have the production designer, by the way, on the first location shoot. If the director is very clear in their mind in terms of how they want art department to transform the space, then they can be there on the first location recce. On the tech recce, this is really specific to camera and lighting, but it is also specific to sound. So you will then have the sound up doing this recce with the camera and lighting department. When I say the department, not the whole department, just the DP and the gaffer. But yes, the production designer can be there as well. The sound up needs to be there because if you are shooting, if he knows you're shooting a scene that needs to be silent, he needs to be able to test out the environment and see, okay, are we beside a highway or a high trafficked road? Are we going to be hearing motorcycles or buses passing by all the time, or sirens, or you know, whatever it is. Is there a leaking tap in the background? Is wind going to be a problem? And it's obviously better to raise these issues before you actually shoot, as well as find solutions. If you cannot change the location for whatever reason, find solutions to work around it. All of that you should work out from this location recce. So after that, if it's fictional work, which means short films or feature-length films or music videos, casting, shot listing, storyboarding. And you guys will get more into storyboarding, not in this session, but in another session with Kwame. But you've already seen examples of shot listing. Then you'd have rehearsals and fittings, but also we would go through blocking. So the director, so this is literally what the choreography that the director has in mind, based on the character or the actor or the talent in relation to the camera. So it's very important for the DP to be there for the blocking, the director and the talent. It's important for the DP because they'll be operating the camera, or they'll have a camera operator operating. So they need to know where the camera needs to be. They need to know how they can light that scene in a way that you won't see equipment or lights, but also achieve the emotional effect or mood or tone of the scene that the director wants. And then also we'd move on to, so then you'd have the shoot day, but sorry, just going back to blocking a bit. Then you have to work out in terms of camera movement. It may not just be a straight on shot, and it may not be one character in the scene. So how do these two characters work around each other for us to achieve this particular shot that the director wants? And how will the camera and lighting work with that in tandem to make the scene cohesive and work together? So then we go on to the actual shoot day. So by this time you would have prepped everything and you'd have been ready and prepared. Specific to documentary filmmaking, you would have done your pre-interviews, or you'd have had a lunch chat or conversation with your subjects. You would by now have had an idea of the B-roll that you need, if that's the way that you're shooting the documentary. Some people, there are different types of documentaries, by the way, and you guys can look more into that. So for example, one is observational documentary. So based on the type of documentary that you're shooting, your prep may actually change and vary, because some people like to go into the environment directly and just shoot as they're there. But it's important to note, other things. For example, are you going on sacred ground or sacred land? And do you have a pass, or do you have permission to do that? Have you spoken with the relevant authorities in place to do that? And then you'd have done your shot list. Even if it's documentary, you would have done a shot list. Even if it's a music video, you would have, not even if it's a music video, definitely for a music video, you would have done a shot list. And just to give you an example, I didn't do this. We spoke about treatments and I didn't really show you. So for example, you can have a treatment, which is literally just a document with words and paragraphs, and that's fine. Or you can do a visual treatment, which I prefer to do, which is literally a combination of all those words that you would have written out, but then you have the visuals to support it. So for example, when I'm pitching for a project, it doesn't mean I've gotten the project, but let's say somebody has contacted me. This is for a music video. So I'll literally have an image of at the front of it. Nobody, you don't have to do this. This is just my personal style. An image at the front of it, which has a title, the name of the artist, etc. And the image itself should generally be representative of the look and feel of the video. And so I'll have the concept here, and then I'll have, you know, shots with a breakdown of, sorry, I don't know if you guys can see this, it looks blocked on my screen. So yeah, everything I would have typed out in a Word document or in a final draft document for the treatment with everything coming together, I just literally copy and paste it on the images just to represent that particular scene. So this is an example of a visual treatment, so that they can get an idea of, you know, whatever it is. And obviously at the end, you know, say thank you, the usual. This is another one. So yeah, mine just tend to have a particular format, but it's really just text and visuals. The reason why I think it's important to include visuals is because it may be difficult, especially if it's a concept that hasn't been done, or not everything has been done, it's just how it has been done. But if it's a concept that is hard to understand or comprehend, I think it's extremely important for you to have visuals or accompany the words that you have with visuals. And then there are people who are just more visual. You know, when you speak to people, and a lot of people in filmmaking world some never grew up as a bookworm, or some may not even like to read, but they like to see things, and that's how they work best. So you don't want to shortchange yourself so you can actually get the job. So I'll give you an example of a Word document. So this is not a Word document. This is done in Final Draft, which I use to also write scripts, which is the standard program that you use to write scripts. And I'll have a list of those as well. But this is literally just words. But I could do this because I'm co-directing this project with the artist of the project. So for me, I didn't need, or for this particular project, we're both on the same wavelength. I don't need to provide visuals for him to know what's happening in the project. So in those instances, you can get away with it. This is a treatment for a feature-length film. So the length of your treatment is also representative of the length of the actual production. So this is 10 pages long, which is generally, I would say it could be 5 to 10 pages for the treatment of a feature-length film. But this is a treatment. It's all in prose. It's all written out like a story with important scenes, important turning points, the beats, etc., that you need for a feature-length film. But it's written out there. So moving on from that, assembling the team. So just to give you an idea, and I won't be able to define everybody because yes, I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm trying to move as fast as possible. But this is just to give you an idea of who is on set for different productions. So as it relates to films, commercials, and music videos, you'll have the producer, you'll have the line producer, you'll have the production manager. So the producer, head honcho of everything. Line producer is a person who deals a lot with the line. They hire the crew, they deal with the dailies of the budgets, and the decisions there as it relates on set. If they have to make any decisions that affect budget or financing, they're the ones that do that. The production manager, sometimes people lump the line producer with the production manager. I like to keep them separate. Or they may call the line producer the unit manager, but I personally think the production manager is literally there just to make sure that everything is okay on set and that it is running well, while the line producer deals with all the nitty-gritty, brainy mathematics, etc. Then you have the director and the assistant director. Now, this isn't necessarily representative of the chronological or the hierarchy that exists on set. It is as close as possible as it is. But like I said, depending on the project, if the director is the one who has the idea from the start and they are the ones funding the project, then they would be, if you're talking about a hierarchy, that would be it. But essentially, this is a breakdown. Then you have the director, the assistant director, the script supervisor. People in the Caribbean forget about the script supervisor. Hugely important. Sometimes people lump the script supervisor with continuity, and they say the continuity person, and they just think, oh, we need to ensure that, this mug is on the left-hand side of this scene at every point in time that we shoot this particular scene. And if it moves to the right, we need to make sure it's back on the left. That's not all the script supervisor does. Different examples of what they do, for example, would be if somebody exits right of camera, then they need to come back on left of camera. So the script supervisor will literally have the script open. They make a lot of notes, and I'll show you an example of that. It's a bit crazy when you look on a script supervisor's notes, but they have their method to the madness, and it helps because in the edit, the editor uses their notes. If there's a bad take, the script supervisor will note it down, but they literally have their various ways of, you see these curly straight lines. There's literally a meaning to the symbolism of what they have here. And they make their notes over here as well. And they talk about who exits here. They also have to keep record of continuity as it relates to the characters, the wardrobe, the production design, etc. And what a scriptie, or a script, we call them scripties, but a script supervisor will also do, and I mean makeup and wardrobe and all of them should do this, but they will literally take a photo of you at the beginning of the scene, or they will take screen grabs from the monitor of the camera on their phone or whatever device they have at the end of the shoot day or at the end of the scene, because if they know they have to shoot some other elements of that scene the following day, everything needs to be precise as it is. In other words, I can't have a damp stain on my shirt on Tuesday, and then today it's dry on Wednesday, but in the scene it needs to be, this particular spot needs to have blood or needs to have water or a spilled mug of tea or whatever it is. Moving on. Then we have the director of photography. So I've also highlighted the heads of department. So generally speaking, on shoots, you have people just say producer, director of photography, and that's fine because the director of photography is the head of their department. And the head of their department, meaning they're in, like I said before, they're in charge of the light and grip team, which is a whole other section, and they're in charge of the camera team. So I'll break that down for you. You see here, gaffer, sorry, I'm just moving this so I can drag it up a bit. So on the light and grip team, the director of photography manages the gaffer, who is literally the person that lights the set physically. So the director of photography will tell the gaffer, okay, I would like this M18 shining through the window with haze, but black flagged or flagged by a 4x4. And then I want the 300 going through this 4x4 frame, etc., yada, yada, blah, blah. The gaffer will then take that information, get the particular equipment that the DP has asked for, and literally execute that lighting. How does the gaffer execute that lighting? Then they call upon the key grip and the grip. And the key grip and the grips, they're the ones that literally lift all the heavy equipment to set the lighting the way that the DP wants it. So yes, there is this hierarchy or this system. Now, why is it that the director of photography couldn't just go straight to the gaffer, go straight to the grip and the key grip? Because the gaffer needs to be a trained electrician. You don't want to be blowing out people's circuit on set. I don't know everything that the gaffer knows as it relates to electricity. I may know lights, I may know how to shape lights, I may know how to set up lights, but as it relates to power and voltage, and what this circuitry can handle, I've had to have gaffers, do what we call tie-ins. When we're not using a generator, which on most sets we use generators because we just need to manage our own electricity or our own power, I should say. They've had to tie into a circuit for a particular building, but we don't know what the circuitry in that building is like. So that's why it's important for the gaffer to be there on the scout, but it's also to have this trained electrician there on set so that you don't blow up the set. So that's one side, that's key grip and lighting. On the other side of the DP, he or she manages the camera assistants. So you have different levels of camera assistants and they have different responsibilities. The first AC or the first camera assist or the first assistant camera, which is why it's called AC, is the focus puller. When you're working on documentaries, we don't have focus pullers, generally speaking, unless it is a commercialized documentary, for example, the Clark's one. So when I started out, I was always pulling my own focus. If I did a music video, a short film, I mean, and still to this day, I do it. But on bigger productions, on commercial productions, and even some commercial productions, some people still do it, but most times not. Most times it's the first AC who's pulling the focus. So they have a remote unit that they use. And I should have probably brought one down so you can see what that looks like. But they have a remote unit that they use to pull focus while you are moving the camera. So that's the first AC. The second AC takes orders. So the first AC takes orders from the DP. The DP gives orders to everybody, but the hierarchy is the DP gives orders to the first AC. The first AC then transfers orders to the second AC. The second AC is the person who slates. They also change lenses. If the first AC needs something rig-wise, a cable, a cord, tape, whatever it is, the second AC does all of that. You have sometimes a third AC, and that tends to be the DIT person or the digital imaging technician. And that person is literally the person who collects the footage. So if there's a memory card that needs to be handed off, the first AC will take out the memory card, tape it, label it. And it's very important for them to tape and label what scene or, sorry, not what scene, what role they're on, because you don't want to lose any footage at all. Now, the digital imaging technician is a person in front of their computer, whether it's, Mac or Windows, whatever it is. They offload the footage, they put it in they have their particular folder system, and they actually should, most DITs, not most, a lot of DITs here now do it, but they give you a report at the end of the day. And that report literally includes how many rolls of takes you went through, how many times the memory card got changed over, how long the shots were, if there's a missing or a corrupt file. Literally, they have a breakdown of all of that, and that's their role or responsibility. If for any reason the second AC cannot do their job, the third AC or the DIT steps in. Then you have camera PAs. So a camera PA is a camera production assistant, and this person is the person that assists with anything to do with camera. Literally, they're building their way up. So sometimes you may go on a set and you may have an intern and they want to get into the camera department. So they start from the ground level up, which is camera PA. And then from camera PA, then they go to assistant camera, whether it is third, second, or first. And then if you just want to remain a camera assistant, which is an important job in and of itself, then that's fine. If not, you can move on to whatever else. And it doesn't even have to be a DP, it can be, whatever else. But a lot of DPs as well were gaffers before, or grips, more gaffers, and then work their way up. So it's just a whole system. Then you have the wardrobe or stylist, they're the HOD. Forgot about this, cannot forget, should not forget. The director of photography, they work extremely closely with the production designer. How you light a set, how you interact with the props on set, how you create the mood and tone and try to achieve the vision of what the director wants on set is supremely tied into the DP and the production designer. They're literally almost head and head. So the production designer is the head of the art department. The production designer has their workers, their assistants who will help shift shift furniture, put up wallpaper, put up curtain here, whatever else it is. They have the people that work under them, which is the art department. Then you have the wardrobe or stylist. The wardrobe or stylist also has their other departments and people that work under them. You have the sound operator, and they have their department, because you may have somebody who's just the boom operator or the boom op, and then you may have somebody who's working the channels on the recorder. And moving on, you have hospitality or the caterer, you have production assistants, and then you have a hierarchy there of production assistants. You have, people forget, you have drivers of the crew bus, you have drivers for the talent bus, you have drivers for the equipment transportation. And then outside of production, moving on to post-production, you have the editor and the colorist. And then depending on what type of production it is, if it requires a lot of sound editing, the sound editor may be different from the visual or the regular editor because they're specialized in what they're creating as it is in terms of engineering the sound, or it may be an editor who can do both visual and sound. In most cases it is, but on bigger productions, there's a hierarchy in terms of editors as well. But there's a general editor, overarching editor, and then you have the colorist who deals with the color grading. All right, so moving on from that. So the difference between commercials, music video, and film in terms of the crew is you can see the number of crew that you have here. As it relates to documentary filmmaking, you can see it gets supremely smaller. And that has to do with the fact that as it relates to storytelling, sometimes it's best, not sometimes, most times it's best when you're telling an authentic story to then have a small crew that's going to be less invasive, because you are in most cases going into people's personal space and asking them to be vulnerable. Just like I was mentioning about the camera being in front, directly in front of somebody, and them being extremely conscious of the camera, it is extremely important that you try and make whatever setting you're working with as it relates to documentaries the most comfortable it can be for that particular subject. And so for that reason, outside of the budget restrictions, because sometimes you may not have a budget for a documentary, most times now you do, but it clearly is not going to be as big as whether it's commercial productions or fictional or narrative productions. So you generally have the producer. Sometimes it would be the producer director, meaning it's one and the same person, or you'll have the producer, I forgot director here. So it's a producer, director, director of photography. Sometimes that's a team. Sometimes the producer and director are one and the same, and it's the director and the director of photography and a camera assistant. Sometimes it's a director, director of photography and a sound operator. Most times that's the case. But these are generally speaking, the people that you'll have. And yes, like I said, I forgot director on this. So it really should be producer, then director of photography. But generally speaking, 3 to 4 people for documentary filmmaking. Does anybody have any questions, or do you guys want to take a quick 5-minute break?
Hi, good
Questions?
night.
You all can unmute and ask.
Hi, good night. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Great. Tawanda here from representing the Sea Girls Bahamas team. This is a lot of really great information, but I'm trying to digest all of this because, well, in our case, the girls are new to filmmaking. And so I am pretty sure for them to grasp a lot of what is required during the docudrama in, like, I wouldn't say in real life, but in real life, maybe a bit I don't know, I don't want to use the word overwhelming, but overwhelming for them.
Right.
I'm trying to relate it to them because some of them are on, but for them to understand what they need to provide and what they need to do. So my question is, you presented a number of documents that usually is created specifically for the docu-series or docudrama.
Right.
Of the 3, which do you suggest for persons who are new to filmmaking to produce it, just to keep them organized and to have a guideline for them to go by?
So I would say if you're making a documentary specific to just documentary filmmaking, the shot list is very important, because the shot list determines and influences everything else. You may not have to do as detailed a schedule as what a call sheet presents for documentary filmmaking, but at least the producer or the director of the documentary knows, I have to achieve these 12 shots within this day. So therefore I need to have Miss Mary scheduled at 8 o'clock so I can interview her. And then 2 hours after that, or an hour and a half, depending on if I have to move location, etc. Then I go to, I don't know, Kevin, and I interview him. But what I will know is by that shot list, I know, one, how much time, generally speaking, I'm spending with each person. It gives me a guideline in terms of what time of day I need to work with this person, interview this person, or going this person's space. So for me, yes, I would say the shot list. And then from that shot list, the producer can literally just outline a basic, they don't have to do up a whole call sheet, but they can literally just do a timetable of, okay, we need to meet this person at this particular time. And one of the reasons why I'm showing you who is on the team, documentary-wise, journalist speaking, is when you have a production assistant on the team, this is not just a person who carries water or holds a bounce board, because most times you don't have a lot of equipment, lighting equipment wise, on a documentary. But this is literally the person who can assist the producer. So while this interview, let's say the producer is the producer as well as the director, while they're doing the interview, they can call ahead to Kevin, the next person that we need to go to then say, okay, we are 20 minutes out, but just letting you know. And that helps because for the rest of the day, at least you are on it in terms of time. You can give people a heads up as to when you're coming so that they expect you, so that when you do come, you can just get straight into it. So the shot list for me is very important. The research before even the shot list is very important. Research or the pre-interview or the pre-chat is supremely important. So documents wise, shot list, preparation wise, that pre-chat, pre-interview, research, and then the shot list. Also, this is not a document, but just generally speaking, you should do a recce of the location, a scout of the location. So if you are shooting a farm, you need to see what that farm looks like. You need to also clearly, well, most farms are exterior, so exposed to the elements, but you need to see perhaps what time of day you want to shoot it. Do you want to get a sunrise shot? Then that affects the schedule. That affects the shot. That affects the filter, the lens, etc. But at least you know from visiting the location what the location looks like at that particular hour, what the weather generally speaking is like, who may be around at that particular hour. I remember in some cases when I've shot documentaries, I'll know I want to interview this person here, but then what has happened is that there's a school being let out at the same time I want to interview this person. So that's why a scout is also important. I hope I answered.
Yes, you did. Any idea of where we could find templates for a short list?
Okay, so there is, 1 second. I've listed some resources here just for different things. Film sourcing is a good one in terms of just, any document between Studio Binder and film sourcing. And you can literally just Google them. I think it's www.studiobinder.com or www.filmsourcing.com. But they generally speaking have templates. And then in terms of just creating some of the documents, EP scheduling is the standard scheduling software that's used for feature-length films, for documentaries, short or long form. Final Draft is the standard for writing screenplays. You can also use it to write treatments. You don't have to write treatments in Final Draft. You can write that in Word, but specific to screenplays, because screenplays are very specific in terms of the margins and lines, etc. Final Draft. Final Draft and EP scheduling, you do have to pay for it. There are open source software that you can access. I'm trying to remember the one for Final Draft. I will find out and let you know. But even if you Google it, they do have open source screenplay software, but there's one in particular that's really good. And then film sourcing, I know you can download stuff free of cost if I'm not mistaken. Studio Binder, I'm not sure if you have to do a sign up, but those are some of the resources.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let me just fast forward a little bit. So also,
I have a quick question as well.
Sure.
Do you have any tips of when capturing sound in like a location that is really windy?
So normally you would have, I call it muffs. Some people call them dead cats. I don't know what you'll be using if you're just going to be using, like, for example, like a Zoom recorder, or if you're actually using a boom. But as it relates to sound for interviews, I tend to prefer covering it both ways. having the subject with a lapel mic, because it's also the direction that the mic is pointing, and different mics are different directionally, but having a lapel mic and then also having a boom, so that if one gets general sound or if one gets bad sound, there's also coverage with the other. Lapels tend to be very specific, and you'd also muff it. I don't know how you're going to hide it if you don't want to see it. That's a bit difficult. You may have to use tape on the inside, but you would have to be careful of the rubbing of material or, jewelry or whatever else. But lapels and booms, but having the muff on it for wind is very important. If you are using a Zoom recorder, and I wouldn't use that if you're recording somebody talking. If you want to get just Foley and just natural sounds, then Zoom recorders or most recorders tend to have a muff that you can put over it, or a dead cat. I hope that answered that.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
All right. So in terms of, if you're doing fictional stories, then you'd have the breakdown of the script and the breakdown of the script. And I'll just see if I can show you an example of that. That is, so this is from Studio Binder. So this is just to show you, you'd be detailing the scene number, scene name, the location, the page, the description of the scene, and then the breakdown, the literal breakdown is, okay, is there a vehicle in the shot? What color is the vehicle? What type of vehicle? Is there an animal in shot? What's that? Are there any stunts happening in that? What props are needed? Special effects, wardrobe, etc., makeup, hair, etc. Now, the reason why it's important to break down a script is the AD is going to need this to schedule. It's going to schedule the shoot. It's going to affect wardrobe, makeup, styling, production design. You want to have these things on site, and even if it's not fictional work, if you're doing a docudrama, but you are representing a period in time that's not the present day, you want to ensure that you have all of these elements in place. I remember, for example, the same period piece that I was doing the trailer for, we needed to have an old time radio, a specific radio. And, just noting these little details, if you miss it, if you don't have it, and in this particular situation, we were pulling out from the radio, so it was an important element. Then if you don't have these things, then the scene in most cases won't work. And then yes, planning, budget, shooting and scheduling, scouting. Normally we don't do this here in Jamaica. I can't speak for the Caribbean, but we don't normally provide a safety report. There should be a safety report every time you have a shoot, before the shoot, that is. And a safety report literally includes, okay, do we need to are we near, I don't know, a flammable object or instrument or location? What are the risks of that location? What are some of the parameters that we'll have to put in place to avoid these risks? All of that should be broken down in the safety report. Ideally, on set for any production, whether it's documentary, whether it's feature or short length, fictional, music video, commercial, whatever it is, you should have somebody who knows first aid, who knows how to apply CPR. And this is important because you just never know what can happen on set. But like I said, you should have a medical kit. Doesn't matter if it's documentary filmmaking, but you should also know somebody who knows basic first aid or can do basic or knows how to do basic CPR. And when I say knows how to do it, it may just be a simple thing as YouTubing a video on how to do CPR. But at least one person needs to know that. If not, you have a medic or a nurse on set, if it's a bigger production or a commercial or a short film. All right, so documents and contracts, we went through that. Production schedule, call sheets. So these are some of the other documents that you should keep in mind, not specific to documentary filmmaking. Actually, talent release forms. That's important. For documentaries, if you know, especially if you have a large platform that you're going to be sharing it on, or it shouldn't even matter. Once you have somebody's face or image or sound bite in your project, you need to have them sign a talent release form. It's for many reasons, but for two in particular. You give that person a comprehensive idea of what their image and what their voice is being used for, so that there are no complaints in the end in terms of how they're represented. Or you literally stipulate in that talent release that how that person is represented is up to the director or the producer of the project. So once they sign that, they can have no complaint after that. And so that's the other reason. It is for you as the creator, as a producer, as the director, to have it all written in stone that you have the rights to use this person's image and voice, especially for controversial documentaries. You really need to have everything in black and white, hugely important. And you can get, like I said, those resources which we're coming back to, the film source as well as the studio binder. You can create your own, or you can get these documents or templates from there. And if you Google these documents or templates, you will also see examples of them. Deal memos, these are literally like small. This is like the pre-contract to any contract. Generally speaking, on commercial projects here in Jamaica, at least, depending on the agency, or most agencies, if not all, you sign a deal memo. A deal memo literally outlines what your role is on set, how many days you'll be working, what the production name is, and how much you will be compensated. Now, agencies do this so that there are no complaints at the end of the day when they pay you exactly what they told you they would pay you. And it's just outlined there. So they don't have to drop any major contract for you, but literally this is saying, I agree to do this job for X amount on this particular day for X amount of time. It also serves for tax purposes. I don't know how it works in, other countries in the Caribbean, but I know for tax purposes, here, if you're filing as a sole trader, or you have your own business, you may, let's say I'm doing a project for UNICEF, I'm doing a documentary for UNICEF, and UNICEF gives me X amount of money. Now, what my accountant will see is that whole sum. Let's say, I don't know, let's say it's $5,000. They give me $5,000 in my account. Now, anybody seeing that will be like, oh, but you got all of that $5,000. No, what happens is that these deal memos will then itemize and say, I had to pay the gaffer $300, I had to pay this other person $500, and et cetera, so that you can literally see the breakdown of what has come out of that 5,000. So there's documentation for that legally. Then location contracts. Before going on a location, you should have a location contract. Documentary filmmakers don't necessarily need this. Short filmmakers, music videos, commercials, you definitely need this because you don't want to be sued at the end of the day by the person who owns a property. Also, you need to have an understanding with that person. If anything gets damaged, like I've been on a commercial project where I think that the flat screen TV got cracked, or somebody, they had cleared it from set in terms of the production design department, but they put it in a cupboard and then something fell on it in the cupboard. So it got cracked. But literally what this contract is saying is that if, for example, it may say, if anything is damaged, then production is going to be in charge of repairing, fixing, replacing, etc. It will also say what we have access to. So let's say you have a house that has 8 rooms, but the owner is only giving you access to to the master bedroom and one of the guest bedrooms and 2 of the bathrooms, and that's it. Then if you or your production goes past that, then they literally have every wherewithal to say that you have violated the contract. But it also just encourages a trust or bond between the production and the location or the owner of the location. The DIT report I already spoke about. That's a report that gives you that details what footage you've shot in terms of how many rolls you've gone through, the timing of average timing of each scene or each shot or each take, the name of all the files, if a file is corrupt, etc. And it helps both the editors. It helps both in editing and just accountability otherwise, because if there's a lost file, the DIT would be able to say when and where it got lost if they have a recording of it. All right, so this is an example of a deal memo. So production company, film title, doesn't have to be a film, can be a commercial, can be a music video. The start date, the position, the contractor's name, the address, the compensation, what you will be credited as, because that's another thing if you're not credited correctly, etc., etc. Moving on. So we looked at this already. Resources, final draft for screenwriting, for screenplays, EP scheduling for scheduling and breakdowns. Studio Bangna and Film Sourcing are sites that you can go on to get templates of some of these documents that we mentioned before. No, I'm not going to go into any of this. I'm just listing this here. So these are some of the things that you should think about in whichever category you fall, whether it's documentary filmmaking, music videos, short films, docudramas. Pitching, how are you going to pitch your idea? And when I say that, not just at the beginning, I know you guys have to pitch your ideas, I think at the end of this while, or you're creating the actual project. But if you are trying to get funding, whether before or after, it doesn't have to be this project, it can be anything else that you work on after this, you should be able to pitch your idea well. And that's a whole other science in and of itself. How are you going to, what are you, at the end of the day, when you make and spend time on making this project, what's the purpose of the project? What are you going to do with it afterwards? How are you going to market it? And a lot of people, as filmmakers, we're not the best marketers. I say this all the time. So these are some of the things that you should think about before you start the project, as well as during and afterwards. Because perhaps how you shoot it and what's involved in it, let's say it's a short film, if there's product placement, or if there's a particular style that you're thinking of putting it out on, you have to consider all of these elements and may affect framing and composition, etc. That's a whole other thing. Your trailer is one of your selling points. And who are you targeting? So how are you going to be editing this trailer to suit the particular, the niche market that you're going after? Something to think about as well. And then festival directories. Most times people try and market, and this is probably one of the best ways, especially if it's in the short form, short films, short documentaries, short docudramas. Most times these go to festivals if they get into the festival. So have an idea of what your festival strategy is. Supremely important. I can't overemphasize this. If you want, let's say you are a first-time filmmaker, my personal suggestion is the bigger festivals need to see that your film has done well at other festivals or has been accepted at other festivals. One of the best ways is to start with smaller festivals. And this doesn't mean that you're not reaching far. It means that you're being very strategic in how you're going to go about your festival campaign. What you ideally want to do is to enter your film in a festival where it can do well, it can get recognized, it can get a prize. And that is what you use to then market it to the bigger festivals, because the programmers of these bigger festivals, unless they know you personally, they may overlook the film. And it doesn't say that the caliber of the film is bad, it just means that they may overlook the film. Also, when you're submitting to festivals, reach out to the programmer, especially because they may not know you. Start having a conversation, send them an email, show that you know something about the festival and what they do. Speak about your project and why you want to try and get it into the festival, or if they will have a look at it and follow up, because programmers look at hundreds of films and they may forget yours, or they may see the title of yours and not remember that this is a person or this is what the film is about. So yes, contact the programmers of the festivals if you can. And just to give you just an overview of, and this is not all of the things I've done, it's just like a highlight reel of sorts, but some of the things that I mentioned before. So as a DP, one of the things that I like to do for my gaffer is I like to do a lighting diagram, especially if I know I have a couple of scenes that day, which always happens. I mean, that's the norm. But let's say I need to be shooting a particular scene, but I need to have something being set up at the same time in another area. My gaffer can use these diagrams to know exactly what lights I want to be placed where. So for this particular scene, so this was the short film Flight. So for this particular scene, this was a lighting and camera setup. There are other shots in this scene that you don't see from this one frame, but literally in those other shots, you'll see some of the background, which is being lit hair, etc., etc., etc. So lighting diagrams are very important. Those are other documents. So just like how the director may go into, you know, the production design, wardrobe and styling and send out those documents, the DP will probably send a lighting setup or a floor plan or a lighting design for the gaffer. And it just makes things flow quicker and easier on the day. Also, the DP has to provide production with an equipment list. And for them to do that, they need to know how they're going to light the scene. So the equipment list comes after the scout or the recce. And the DP provides that, or sometimes the gaffer. In my case, I provide it. Most DPs here provide that list. On bigger productions, on feature length productions, it may be the DP speaking to the gaffer and the gaffer presenting that list to the producer. I didn't complete this slide, but basically, so when I was talking about shots being handheld, normally or nowadays, before we used to actually just hold the camera, we are holding the camera, but now we're doing it on easy rigs. And it just helps because, and when I say it helps in terms of the movement and the flow of the camera. It doesn't make it too jarring while it's moving. And it also helps to lighten the load of the camera. My cameras tend to be between, when rigged, maybe between 26 to 33 pounds. So it is quite weighty. And if you have to be carrying that around, I mean, you get used to it, but for your back, it's not exactly great. So just to also give you a little bit of behind the scenes. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see what the frame, what the image looks like once the project is done. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like behind the scenes in terms of what's lit hair. So we were on a very tight budget. Normally I'd have like a black flag here. And when I say black flag, it's like a black square that's put up, and they have different sizes. Now I like to use black wrap, and black wrap, imagine foil, but just black, and it's very specific. The material can literally cut you, can slice your finger, but you can shape it and mold it, and it helps to mold and shape light. And here's another one. So this is a music video, and this music video is Mango. So this is just behind the scenes of, you guys can see this, right? Just to make sure you guys are still here.
Yes,
Or,
please.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, just to make sure you guys are still awake and kicking. But I'm going to wrap up shortly. So this is just to give you a behind the scenes of what went into the production here. And as you can see, you see all of this crew, you see the art department team setting the curtains around, you see the hairstylist, who's different from wardrobe, setting her hair. Her hair is literally a piece of foam that they cut out. I don't know how they did it, but they did. This is the wardrobe stylist hair. So it's just, you know, different people. The important thing is that it's a whole team. Now, when I speak to you about scouting and the end product, this is why it's important for the DP to take photos. So this is the director for a short film that I DP'd, and what you see at the bottom, I'm just trying to pull this up a bit, 1 second. So basically, this is the before and after. The director was acting out the shot for me. She was walking through it so I could get an idea of what the angle and the shot that she wanted to do. And that's how we work, because this is a first time director. And so just to get an idea for herself, as well as for me to work it together with her, we decided to do it this way. So took a shot of her acting out the scene, and then this is the final product with the real talent, with lighting, etc. But it also gave me a sense of the location, and it also informed how I lit the shot, which is why all of that prep is important. This is a commercial project. So this is the one with Coffee and Nike. So this is the director right here. So I'm just pulling this up. As you can see, the before and after, this is a record shop. It's very black and white in the before. And when I say black and white, sorry, it's very, I don't say mundane because it has a vibe, But what informed the green and pink of the actual shoot was that it was advertising the clothing and just the Nike Jordan brand. And what the director wanted, we knew that the talent was wearing green and pink. And so the director wanted the lighting to also be informed by the wardrobe. And then when I mentioned color grading, so this is a difference in camera, any camera that shoots flat, any high-end camera, no. We will record in log or flat mode. So what you will see in camera is actually this. When you see the film edited, you'll still see this grayed out image. However, when the film is colored, when the project or the music video is colored, this is a music video, this is what you will see. And I just have a couple of other examples. So that same shot that I showed you with the director, when we shot it in camera and when it was lit, this is how it was lit. When it is colored, this is the end product of when it's colored. Now, something to note, a lot of people depend on color grading to fix lighting issues. It should not be that way at all. What you can't see, and this is just the technology of the camera itself, is that the colors are there. And also it's lit to be graded, color graded in this way. So what you can't see on this light on the outside is that there's a blue gel on the light. In camera, in this mode, it looks grayed out. But when you bring up the colors in post in the color grading, then you change, and you can also change the color temperature of the scene if it's a raw file, if it's a log footage, then this is the outcome. But this is the before and after of color grading, which is why color grading is supremely important. Likewise, this is the same thing. This is another short film, and that's the same short film I showed you before. That's before and after. This was a music video. That's the before and after. This is the same music video. And as you can see, the colors look definitely more rich. It doesn't necessarily change what the colors would look like in reality. It just, brings up the color that's there. This is another music video. And this was, I think this was a Buja music video. So even in this shot, it's not like you didn't change the color of the scene, you're just enhancing what exists. Now, I mentioned festivals. So I decided to just put these in different categories for your benefit, because I'm not sure at the end of the day what you'll be using your films for, but I felt it was important to highlight some of the festivals that you could actually look out for. And these are not all of the Caribbean festivals that we have quite a few. I've just mentioned some of the highlight reels. So there's the Havana Film Festival, which is in Cuba, which I believe is the largest Caribbean film festival, if I'm not mistaken. There's the Bahamian International Film Festival, which is a big one. You have Trinidad and Tobago's Film Festival, which I love. You have the Aruba Film Festival, you have the Bermuda International Film Festival, and you have the Belize International Film Festival, as well as a couple others. Something very important to note is that the Bermuda International Film Festival is an Oscar approved film festival. I'm trying to remember if the Bahamas Film Festival is Oscar qualifying, but I know the Bermuda International Film Festival is Oscar qualifying. So these are also, when you're targeting film festivals, when you're making that trailer, when you are making that EPK, that electronic press kit for your film, whether it's documentary or it's a short film, when you're speaking to that programmer for the film festival, you need to know how hard it is to get into that film festival. What are the types of films that they genuinely or normally go after? Who are the programmers for the film festival? But you need to research the festival, and I mean, is it Oscar qualifying? How far can your film go? How far do you want it to go? Be very strategic. So this, I just highlighted some Black film festivals as well. There's American Black Film Festival. There's Bronze Lens, which is Oscar qualifying, that's why I have the asterisk there. There's a Toronto Black Film Festival and Montreal Black Film Festival. I've been to both. No, I've been to one. I've been to Montreal, but they are managed by the same team. So that's why I put them side by side. There's Black Star. So I've been to Bronze Lens. I've been to American Film Festival. They're all very encouraging of Black filmmakers and Black films. ABFF, which is the top one, very hard to get into, but that should encourage you to go after it even more. What's really big about ABFF is that the people, the star wattage and power that they bring to that festival, and the connections that they have, because they also have strong connections with HBO, it can help to propel your project. Likewise, the Black Women in Film Network, it may be a small Black female targeted film festival, but they also have strong connections with HBO, who sponsors them, so you can get your work out even more. There's also the Pan-African Film Festival, and there are variations of Pan-African. There's the standard Pan-African Film Festival, and then, for example, we had gone to a Cannes, Pan-African Film Festival de Cannes, which is completely different, but they're also supportive of Black filmmakers, or people of color, I should say. Then we have international film festivals, and there are tons of film festivals, international film festivals. But here are some of the bigger ones. So Cannes is at the top. I've been to Cannes. It's a film festival, and I'm sure most of you know these festivals, but Cannes is really targeted to, if you're more business oriented and trying to connect with people business wise to market your project, it's a whole lot happening all at once. Some people don't find it encouraging. I feel like you have to know people before you actually go, and you really should. If you don't know people, reach out to them before you actually go. There's a Sundance Film Festival, and when I went to Sundance, I was supporting a friend, so I didn't have a film in there at the time, but it was exceptionally welcoming. And for a film festival that has such a big name, the programmers, the organizers, their one-on-one connection with filmmakers, that the sense of camaraderie and the environment that they provide during the film festival is so it's so encouraging, but it is very conducive for connections. And that's why film festivals are so important. I've made so many connections internationally with other filmmakers that I have then worked with on projects, whether it's documentaries or commercial work, whatever it is. When they come to Jamaica or whatever it is, they're bringing work my way. And just outside of that, creatively, we're bouncing ideas, bouncing, films, etc., off each other and getting inspired. There's TIFF. I also went to TIFF. That it's also a bit busy, but I had to pitch at an event within TIFF. And I didn't get to spend a lot of time there because I was training for the pitch, but it wasn't bad. It was actually nice, but I think my favorite so far has been Sundance. Then there's Berlinale or the Berlin Film Festival, which is also big. There's Tribeca, there's Rotterdam, in specific to documentaries. There's the IDFA. There's another European Film Festival that I had to pitch at, which went well, and they're also supportive. They have outward connections as well. So if you want your project to go further, they can connect you with them. Then, you have the BFI, and then you have South by Southwest. And as we're talking about film festivals, sometimes we think it's just documentaries and short films, but I'm sure South by Southwest, you can enter music videos. And for the smaller film festivals, you can also enter music videos. Okay, and that's it. So I hope if you have any questions, let me know. But if not, I hope you gained, something or anything that will help you with your projects moving forward.
Hey, Gabrielle, thank you. I was just wondering, because I had to jump off to go and address the Women in Film and TV Jamaica chapter to tell them about the event and what we're doing. Were you able to share any of your actual films, like give the girls a snippet?
Not the actual films, just the documents. But no, I can't. I'd have to just look them up though.
Right. Yeah. So what we will do is, girls, we are going to post the films from Gabrielle on the notice board, so you can go back and check them out and see exactly how some of the things that she spoke about tonight, some of the concepts, the activities, and so on, how they actually come to life in the form of her films. All right. So any questions? I know that questions have been coming throughout, but just a couple of wrap-up questions, if any. Open up your mics and ask questions. Hello. I guess everybody asked as they went along. Any
So-
questions in the chat?
I was trying to look and see. I know I saw some things coming through.
There will be an animation session. Yes, we're going to be posting. Okay, Sarika says, not a question, but that was a great session. I loved it. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm
This is
looking forward to see the
amazing.
projects.
Yes, somebody else said, this is amazing. There will be other sessions on animation, photo storyboarding. We're also going to have Kwame Lestrade, who is going to be doing a session that's applicable for everybody who is doing music video, short film, docudrama, animation. So that's going to be a kind of all in one. And just keep watching the notice board. I think we may have do we have Kwame's poster ready, Kev?
No, but I'll put it up on the notice board as soon as we get it.
Right. And we have Manina on Monday, who's going to be doing this session on photo storyboarding for the girls who are using photo storyboarding as their final product. Right, and Kev has just posted 3 times the link to the notice board. So,
And
Just in case
somebody
they
just
missed it the first time.
somebody asked about editing apps. Primarily, there are 3 I would recommend. There is Premiere Pro, which some of you may be familiar with. There is Final Cut. Final Cut specific to Apple. Premiere Pro can go across Apple or PC platforms. But now DaVinci Resolve, which is the color grading software that I color grade in, that also has an editing section. It's much more detailed now. So nowadays I edit in DaVinci and color grade in DaVinci. So it's just one linear timeline or workflow.
So Gabrielle, what we could trouble you for is maybe you could send to Bridget a list of those what you have. Just send all, and we put it up on the notice board
Sure.
so that
Yeah,
people have access to it.
Sure. I will.
okay, any other questions, comments? Oh, somebody had asked that before about capturing sound enough, in a windy location. All right. Have we answered all of your questions, girls? Looks so. All right. Wonderful. Gabrielle, thank you so much. I mean, that was an amazing session, and I'm hoping that as a result of that session, we are going to have a whole cadre of young DPs and directors and filmmakers, because I mean, you are one of the dynamic women that they can have as a role model. Yeah.
And
so
film now is a much more viable career option in the Caribbean. So I'm looking forward.
Yes. We're trying to get as many films as possible from Caribbean female filmmakers for the movie theater. We're gonna have a movie theater on the 24th, girls. You can go there and watch films from other female filmmakers. So look out for that. That's coming on the 24th. Thanks again, Gabrielle.
No problems, no problems. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the projects.
Yes, for sure. Everybody can just do a hand clap for Gabrielle, please. Go to reactions. Yay.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Zoom.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. All right, so Kev, do we have anything else? Okay, the next session is coming up on Friday. And we don't have the poster yet, but look out for the notice board. I can tell you what it's going to be called. It's called Ready to Press Record. So that means you're ready to start filming, whether you're doing animation or short docudrama film or music video. So it's going to be across the board, so don't miss it. It's on Friday, same time. And the presenter is Kwame Lestrade. And Kwame is a filmmaker and a director of Caribbean Heritage, but he is in the UK. He operates out of the UK. You can check him out if you want. I'm going to put his website before. It's www.kwamelestrade.com. And Kwame is an award-winning filmmaker, so he will have lots of interesting techniques to share with you guys come Friday. And everything is going to come together, what Gabriel did today and what Kwame is going to do on Friday and one day next week, because he'll be doing 2 sessions. So you're going to see how everything comes together to give you your final product. So we're excited. So that's Friday. And then on Saturday, somebody was asking about, maybe we could share the Saturday poster, Kev. So that's the anime. We have an animation sessions on Saturday at 10:30. Kevin, you can put up that poster.
Yeah, we'll put it up on your notice board as soon as we get it.
It's in the chat, actually, Kev. It's already in the chat. The animation one. And that's going to happen on the 10th of April. So that will be a deep dive workshop on the 10th. And it will be a young animator out of South Africa, Bokang Kwate. So you don't want to miss that. You can follow him at on Instagram at BOK Draws. So that's what we have coming up for the next couple of days. Yes, Andre, sorry. Yeah, and Joyce, let me just come back to you in a second. Let me just finish this session. I'll call you right back. Yes, I will. Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so the session that on Saturday, you can follow him at BOK Draws. Kev, there we go. April 10th, deep dive workshop on animation. I know some of you are asking about that. So don't miss Friday, Saturday. Friday is a session for all people doing animation, docudrama, short film, and animation. And then an animation specific session comes on Saturday. Okay? And we're gonna post all of the posters on the notice board so you guys can get ready. All right. I think that's it for today. Thanks, girls. We're going to end with our winner song. Thanks again, Gabrielle. Great session. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Winner, winner. Winner, winner. I am a winner. Almighty make me know. Oh, I am a winner. Oh, yeah. Oh, I am a winner. I am a winner from the Caribbean. Oh,